and then we'll make a start. I'm so pleased some of you have managed to join us live. So you've already started on introducing yourselves within the group, and that's been super to see. So first question this evening really is, well, where are you? And have you got a little snack with you? I know it's a little bit early in the evening. Some of you won't even had your dinner yet, but if you do have a snack with you, what are you eating and what are you snacking on? What are you drinking? I've only got a very boring bottle of water this evening, so I don't spell tea. My able assistant has just offered me tea. You'll notice I keep putting my glasses on and off. It's because, yes, Sally, you are definitely here with us. I keep putting my glasses on and off because I've got, I only need reading glasses. Anyway, so yes, oh, cup of tea. Fantastic. Right, okay. I don't want to keep everybody busy for too long this evening, so I am really pleased to be here. This is really just a series of lives and some emails going out this week. We've called it the Maker's Reset because we are fully aware of how difficult it is to keep your momentum as a creator, and as someone who maybe feels that kind of overwhelm when it comes to crafting. So I thought, okay, let's help people out. Let's see what we can do to restart that autumnal creative crafting sessions. Basically, I'm just to introduce myself. I'm Hannah. I'm from Stitching Kitchen in Brackley in Northamptonshire. And I know we've got some local people on. There's some lovely people who I have met in the studio. And I recognise some of the people that are telling me they've got cups of tea and leftover roast. Yummy. Okay, so I'm Hannah, and what we do here at Stitching Kitchen is we teach all sorts of textile crafts, from wet felting right the way through to dressmaking. And one of the things that I love doing is encouraging everybody to have a go, to just make for making's sake, to embrace that kind of play element that as a grown-up we don't get enough chance to play, and it's really, really good for our mental health just to make things, make a mess. You have to tidy up afterwards, unfortunately, unless you come here. And the opportunity to be creative is often stifled by people's desire to be really perfect in what they're doing. So tonight I'm going to show you that you don't need to have a lot of resources, and you definitely don't need to be able to draw in order to be creative. So yes, two of the things that people come to me often and say, oh, I don't know where to start because I've either got no inspiration or I have an overwhelming amount of stuff around me and I don't know what to do. So we're going to hopefully help you with some of those blocks. And then the major one, and for those of you that I met over the weekend at the quilt exhibition in Tingewick, I think 90% of people said they couldn't find time. And finding time and making time for yourself is so hard. But congratulations to all of you that are here tonight, because you've done it. You've made time for yourself. So congratulations. Absolutely top notch. I'm really, really proud of all of you. Whether you're here live now or whether you're watching the replay, congratulations for making some time for yourself. So well done you. So what I'm going to do today is just show you a little process that I go through often when I'm making my textile art. My favourite thing to do is to textile collage. And then once I've created the collage, I like to sew into it, to stitch into it, either by hand embroidery or with my sewing machine. And so I want to kind of help you to get over that thing that we all feel, or some of us feel, that we can't draw. I think the preconception is that we should all be able to draw like they did when they had governesses and hundreds of hours practice, when people could draw as well as, I'm going to show my age now, The Diary of the Edwardian Lady used to be on the television. And those books where they're beautifully illustrated and you just feel a little bit intimidated. So I've encouraged those of you that are kind of have been in the group for the last few days, those of you that have been able to get your emails, I've asked you to find some inspirational pictures or photographs. And thank you very much for those of you that have shared them in the group, because it's been really lovely to see. I've popped a couple of my inspirations in too. And I've been looking at autumn. Every time I've been driving around this week, last week, or when I've actually got round to taking the dog outside, I've been seeing the beautiful autumnal colours changing. So that's really what's going to inspire my piece. So I'm going to show you and guide you through the process that I take. It's not the only way of doing it. And yeah, so let's make a start. So I've got this fancy setup here. It's really not that fancy, honestly, but it means that I've got two cameras. So I'm going to swap over to the overhead camera for a moment and just show you a picture that some of you will already be familiar with. So this is the photograph that I shared in the group. Confession time, it's not one of mine. You will find as you peruse the internet that there are hundreds of photographs. If you're on Pinterest, I have created a board, and I think these days it's a bit more difficult to share your own collections, your boards, but I just threw in loads of things that were autumnal. So there's lots and lots of pictures out there on Pinterest that you can collect together for inspiration.
I'll find it, give me 2 seconds.
So my lovely assistant Nettie is going to actually pop the link to that if she can find it. So yes, so that's in there, but it just means that if you are doing your own piece of artwork, you don't necessarily have to take your own photograph or do your own drawing as a starting point. So this is a picture I found on Pinterest, and I don't feel confident sketching that because when I sketch things, I tend to get the proportions all wrong. And I really like the movement in this photograph, and I think that it works really well as a composition. And there's enough interest that I think it will work reasonably well as a textile collage. But there's loads of ways of going about taking that image and then putting it into collage form. So I want to try and make this as inclusive as possible. So what I want to show you is the fact that you can use lots of different methods in order to copy a photograph. So I have just used an inkjet printer and printed out this photograph on my A4 printer. So this is the one that is in colour. And then I also asked my computer to also print it in grayscale. So that means you just print it out in black and white. And sometimes when you're copying things, that can be easier. It also gives you the tones, the lights and darks. And then if you really want to go fancy, or if you really, really want the option to really just drill down to the line aspect, I found this little app, which is part of the software Canva, which is used for making posters and that sort of thing. And I found one that's called, I'm going to have to look it up, excuse me for just a moment. It's called Sketchify. And Sketchify just turns a photograph into a line drawing. So that's another option. So my first instinct usually is to take things easy. And so my first method of copying a photograph, I would generally just start simple and go for the old-fashioned way. So I take a piece of tracing paper and then I will get a pencil and just draw. So you may, if you're very observant, have noticed that this is lying on top of a light box. I'm lucky enough to have a light box. If you don't have a light box, if it's a sunny day, you can actually just use some masking tape and stick it to your window and let the sun do the work for you. And it just means that the image shows through onto your tracing paper much easier. So I'm literally just going to do the outline of the areas so that when I come to do collage later in the week, I've got some shapes that will form part of my drawing. So this is not going to be my best work because I'm working at a funny angle, but basically we've got some squiggly bits along the riverside. And I've got this lovely path, which is giving interest through the picture. And I've wiggled off course. Some shadow under the tree and those firm branches here. And when I start doing pieces, this is generally what I tend to do. I tend to block out the areas, and this way you're not destroying your original picture. If you've got the option, you could simply use the image and print it out twice and use one as a template and one as a reminder on how it goes back together. So we've got some trees in the background here, a little bit of shadow there on the lake, the reflected area there. There we go. So we don't need to be able to draw at all because we can just use what we've got to hand. So that's probably almost enough actually, because then what I will do is take that line and use that as my template to be able to then cut out areas in different tones of fabrics. So I'd have the orangey, the more red coloured leaves, again the yellow, that tree trunk, these green bushes over here, and go on from there. So that's method number one. So that would be my simplest way of doing it, and I would then probably take that through and cut out the tracing paper to then make templates going on. So that's method number one, and I'm sure you've all used tracing paper in the past. If you haven't got any tracing paper at home, you can always use, I mean, most of us have got some greaseproof paper in our cupboards in the kitchen, and that works just as well too. So absolutely no need to be able to draw at all. So next prompt. I'm just checking my notes because I know what I'm like. I'll ramble on about tracing paper and greaseproof paper and I'll forget to do the next bit. So if you are struggling, if you don't have a light box, or if you're struggling to see the lines through, there's another trick that I can show you. So another copy of the same thing, but what can be quite useful is if you are struggling to see those lines, is to just take a sharpie, so a nice thick line, and define those edges. And actually now I'm doing this again without the tracing paper. I'm seeing I'm seeing a different picture actually. It's really interesting to do this process for multiple times. And it just means that then you've got a nice dark line, which hopefully will help. And I'm going to discover now that the Sharpie's not going to fail on me. And sorry, you're going to see my arm right across the screen there. Just means that then if you then want to go on and trace it and you haven't got a light box, or if it's not a sunny day, just helps you see those lines. This only needs to be, because obviously we've got our ability to add detail later. So this same process works if you can't, if you're not into textile collage. I know a lot of you in the group are have got sewing machines and are sewists, but I know there's other people that do other crafts too. But the same process works for any kind of creativity. It's about taking those inspirations and allowing yourself to be free to interpret them without having the block of that intimidation that perhaps the art teacher at school gave you, that you can't draw because what you do isn't right, that the proportions aren't right, that you've missed something. And there's, you know, we don't need to listen to those voices in our heads anymore. Right. Okay, I've forgotten this bit up here. There we go. So having that slightly better defined line will then help you see through. If I turn my backlight off, you can probably see the lines a bit more clearly. So that's really handy. Just going to whiz back over to me. It's really handy if you don't have a Lightbox, or if you find that the light isn't fantastic. So as I'm chatting away, do let me know if you've got a favoured way of doing your transferring any ideas or images. If there's anything that I'm not going to discuss today that you use. Now, as I mentioned, I do like doing hand embroidery as well. So if I'm working on something that's smaller scale, one thing that I do like to do is to use the iron transfer pencil. Those of you that maybe are slightly older, like my age or a bit older, might remember the little booklets that you used to get with all the stencils, and there'd be lots of pictures in the book and you could iron them and use them several times. Well, those are the printed version, but we can also, we've got a couple of different brands actually in the studio, where there's a pencil that you can use and draw onto your image, and then use the iron to transfer the image onto the fabric that you want to then stitch into. So it works really well for hand stitching. Also works for cross stitch, because you can use those lines as the border of what you want to stitch into. So these are known as, and apologies, the glasses are going back on again. They are called iron-on pencils, or iron-on transfer pencils. So I will just show you how I use those. So those are the two that we have in store. So one of them is Prim and the other one is a Clover one. And what I've done quite successfully in the past is actually just use that image. If you turn it over, this will obviously give you a mirror image of what's the finished image is, unless you print it out the other way around, of course. But those dark lines are quite visible now. So what you could then do is use this pencil. This is a blue one, and it's kind of slightly waxy. And what it does is it leaves the pencil mark over here on the paper, and then with not too hot an iron. Yeah, I am speaking from experience. I have had a situation where I ended up kind of burning the paper. So you want a warm enough iron to melt the wax within the pencil and transfer the image, but not so hot that it burns the paper. And then these areas, then it will give you this image in reverse on your fabric. So I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you can see then that where I've drawn there, if you flipped the piece of paper over, put it onto your fabric, that will then transfer the image. The iron-on pencils I love, so yeah, they're really, really useful. So yeah, iron-on pencils are great. And I did, if you have a dig around on my website or look back through my Instagram. There's a picture I did for my friend's wedding, which was actually a photograph I'd taken of her and her husband outside the Radcliffe Camera in Oxford, and I managed to transfer that image onto fabric and then use a combination of ink tents. Actually, I'd coloured in with ink tents on that one and stitched into it, and it was great fun, and it was a really nice memento for them for their weddings. So, yeah, check out that if you've on my Instagram. I know I have posted it fairly recently. So yes, we've done those bits. So the other way that you might want to do this is if you know you're going to be doing collage, the other thing that you can potentially do is actually let's bypass the whole transferring, cutting out, and go ahead and draw onto Bondaweb. So Bondaweb is this amazing stuff that we use quite a lot in applique. So the quilters amongst you will have definitely used Bondaweb. It's kind of papery on one side and bumpy on the other, and basically it's a really, really thin layer of glue, which means that you can draw on the paper side and then stick that shape onto fabric and then cut it out. So what I tend to do with this is I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to use the line drawing version of this. So this is just squash it down a little bit. This is the version from that Sketchify app that I used earlier. And it means that then this is the Bondaweb on top of it. So the Bondaweb, I've put it down so that the glue side is down. And obviously with the sketch, it's a little bit different, but it means that actually the definition of those lines is a little bit easier to see almost. So I'm just going to do that. And it means then that what you can do, it will end up a mirror image of this image because the glue's on the opposite side. So if you did want it to be as per the original drawing, you would need to flip the image before you got your Bondaweb out. But I don't mind. I think either way round kind of works. This looks totally different. I'm struggling to, it's because of all those lovely leaves. That's the problem. But what is nicely defined are these tree trunks. So let me just get those down. And there we go. So this is quite a quick way of doing it. And it just means that then you can then take your scissors, cut out the different shapes, and then use this to create your pieces for your collage. And on we go. So you get the picture. So I would cut those out and then use those little individual bits and pick out fabrics that I wanted to for those background areas. So the greens and the oranges and the greys. So, and thank you very much for everybody who loves Bondaweb. It is amazing, but it always gives me a slight headache as I'm planning now which mirror image thing. So, yeah, it's great. The other advantage of Bondaweb for other purposes is that you can you can applique. And because of the glue element, it means that your fabrics won't fray, which is really, really handy if you're appliquing onto something and you've got slightly looser weave. So those are the kind of old school ways. There is also another option, which is if you really, 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 really don't want to do drawing, you can use your computer printer. And there are products out there. Here's a couple of ones that I've got in the studio here. And they allow you to just print directly onto the fabric. So we've got two types here. One of them is sticky on the back, so it's like an iron-on thing. So if you were doing a label, that's for the one that you would do. So you can print your image onto fabric. This fabric is backed onto a paper carrier. It goes through your inkjet paper. And this one here, the top one I've got there, it then irons on to the finished product. Or the other one, which tends to be the one that I tend to use more often, is one that just goes through your inkjet printer. Both of these have got kind of a treatment on the fabric, which means that the inkjet ink becomes permanent. I wouldn't trust it on a hot wash, but it is permanent. And that means that you can then just print onto fabric and then use it. In this particular example, they've taken a photograph of a baby and made it into a quilt, which is quite sweet. But yes, those are two things that you can use, which means there is no need at all to do any drawing at all. So there's lots of ways that you can get creative without that noise of your art teacher saying you can't draw. Now then, there's one more way I was going to show you, and I've buried my iPad. So I think it was only last Christmas or maybe the Christmas before, I was introduced to a program on my iPad, which I'm sure lots of you use, and it's a program called Procreate. And it means that you can do sketching and drawing on your iPad. So I'm actually going to be really old school and just show you. I know there's probably ways of sharing your screen and doing it all fancy, but that's not me. I'm not that clever. But I have just about learned how to create one of these kind of diagrams in the same way as I've done on the tracing paper, to create the template for collage using Procreate. Now this program's quite clever, so you can just put the picture in and then it allows you to have layers. So if I just make sure I've got the right layers, so I've got my demonstration layer there, and I've got my really, really special pen. It's not an eye pencil, but it's what my lovely daughters could afford to buy me for Christmas. So I'm sure it was extremely expensive, but not as expensive as an eye pen. And basically it means that you can draw on your photograph, but because it's in layers, it means that you can then use, oh dear, let me just double check. What have I done? It's telling me it's because I'm highlighted the wrong one. Right, okay, it just said, no, you can't draw on that layer, it's hidden. So it means that you can then take your virtual pen and draw your lines on. And it means that then, in the fullness of time, you can then take these lines and print them out, and you've got your template. Now, this is very boring, and also it's quite difficult to do at a funny angle. But the lovely thing is you can undo bits and redo them, and you can change the width of the pen and all that kind of stuff. And you can have a fiddle about for hours and hours on end and lose yourself with your Procreate. And yeah, take ages over it. So the idea is that then, and you can see what a rough job I've done here. If I then turn off the photograph, you can see the sketch lines that I've just very quickly made. But what I'm going to do is, in true Blue Peter fashion, I'm going to actually show you the one I did earlier. And then this gives you a template to then work from. And this might be more useful if you're doing something, you could use it for painting even, but it's just a useful tool. I have also used Procreate to do sketches and then print them out on that printable fabric, and then stitched into them. So it's a really fun program if you are into that sort of thing and you happen to have an iPad. I'm not 100% sure whether Procreate is something that you can use on an Android device or not. I'm sure there's probably an
options. Any sketching app with layers would work.
Ah, okay.
Procreate's about £5.
Oh, okay. Update from the IT department. Apparently Procreate is quite cheap, which is why I bought it. But there are any drawing app where you can use layers. It's fantastic. So yeah, thank you very much to that. But yeah, I've spent hours and hours playing with Procreate, and every time I go back to it, I forget what I'm supposed to be doing. So basically, that is, I don't want to keep you all night because I know we are all super, super busy. I think that is everything I wanted to show you this evening. So hopefully I've been able to show you that you really do not need to be able to draw. Yes, absolutely, the picture can be anything you like. It could be one individual flower, it could be a lamp, I'm just looking at a lamp, it could be a portrait, it could be a photograph of someone you know, because I find drawing faces really, really difficult, but actually working from a photograph works quite well. I'm just looking up at the wall opposite me in the studio, and there's a picture that I did of our late Queen, and I actually just used just a page from the newspaper, and then I used some transparent, basically created, it's pretty much the same method as I've been talking about today. Use different layers and things, so it just means that you can be creative with anything. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today. I'm going to, through this week, I will show you my process of making a collage based around the picture that we've been working on this evening. But in order to do that, there's one more step. And that step we are going to do tomorrow evening. I'm really wanted to be able to pace this out through the week, but lives don't necessarily go smoothly, and my planning skills and having the headspace to do things on the right days hasn't worked out this week. So we're going to go live again tomorrow, which is Tuesday, at the same time at 7. And tomorrow I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about looking at the resources that are around you and how doing a little bit of sorting out can really help you pull together those ideas. So once you've got your inspiration, once you've got an image or an idea, or if you're not pictorial in what you're doing, if you want to do more of something a lot more abstract, just to be able to take that inspiration photograph or picture and then use those colours to be able to sort out your colours in such a way that gives you the inspiration that you need to help you. It's really useful to spend a little bit of time sorting. Now, behind me, you'll have seen there are boxes of fabric. So this is my raw material. But what I want us to do is to have a little sort out tomorrow together. So the job for tonight or tomorrow is to just find some receptacles. Now, that's a long word, isn't it? For sorting out your stash. Now, if you're into pencils and paints and things, it might be boxes or jars. If you're like me and there's scraps of fabric aplenty, it might be Ziploc bags, it might be plastic A4 jackets, it could be larger like baskets I have here, ice cream tubs, plastic boxes. If we're going larger scale, we might even be talking about those like the really useful boxes or the plastic boxes that you can get from IKEA. But yes, if you're talking smaller scale, maybe one of those expandable files. I've got loads of examples. I will be showing you lots of my kind of curated collections of materials, because as you can imagine here in the studio, we've got all sorts of, well, there's fabrics, there's threads, there's paints, there's buttons, there's trims, there's all sorts of things. And in order to get creative with them, you do need to have some sort of sorting out going on. So let's spend tomorrow evening together to have a little sort out and get us ready for putting everything into practice. So thank you all very, 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 very much for joining. It's been great to see the comments coming through. And well done for everybody who's managed to join us, and well done to everyone who's watched this far on the replay. I'm just noticing my glasses are really wonky. So yes, until tomorrow, that's bye-bye for now, and we'll see you tomorrow at 7. Okay, thanks very much.